Welcome in, folks, for another episode of What's Bruin. I am your host, Chris Nozick, joined by the new self-writing for her own blog, or what would you call the Triani Rink Report? A blog?
Um,
News source?
I wouldn't call it a blog because I still have my media credentials, and so I would just say news analysis and game notes. Yeah.
Perfect. Well, joined as always by the wonderful Gayle Triani. Gayle, how does it feel to still have those credentials but not be as limited by them?
I think what I like the best is that I have the freedom to write what I want, and I can write when I want, what I want, and I can focus strictly on hockey.
There we go. Well, congratulations to the new chapter. We are all
Thank
very
you.
excited for what's to come and our continued partnership on the show and a bunch of other stuff that you and I will have in the works as time goes on.
Mhm.
We got Matrix jumping in the chat. Hopefully, he's doing all right as well. Today was a big day, though, for the Boston Bruins. The first press conference for Marco Sturm as the new head coach. Um, what were your thoughts?
So I was amazed that Sweeney said that he spoke to 14 different candidates. That kinda threw me for a loop.
Was it
I
the
didn't
number or was it that he actually admitted the number?
uh, both.
Okay.
And I'm not somebody he's pretty, once the process is over, a lot of the times he's a little bit more, what's the word? Freeing with the information. I think it was the number, the fact that there was 14 different candidates that he spoke to. And he made it perfectly clear that they weren't necessarily intense conversations. Some of them were just initial, like, hey, get to know you type of thing.
Yeah.
But the fact that there was a list of 14 people that they were looking at, that shows me that he did his due diligence. That he didn't just have this small pool and say these are the only people that they actually looked for, outside the box.
Yeah, I think it's a twofold to kind of really put out there the transparency of why it took so long.
Mhm.
I mean, we could probably come up with the 14 names if we really put our heads together and tried, but we know who the main candidates likely were. And to your
Right.
point, it wasn't, I mean, you pick up the phone and you say, hey, obviously we're considering our head coaching search. Your name came across my desk as a
Excuse
possible candidate. I like what I've seen with what you've done here, here, and here. You know, would you be interested in talking further? At that point, you're officially having a conversation. So we don't really know how far the other 13 people really got, but you
Mhm.
know, I mean, Woodcroft, Sturm, Talkett, like these guys were clearly, multiple conversations, and they carry a wide spectrum of experience and what they bring to the table. Um, I gotta say, the way he carried himself both on the stage during the press conference, and then later he did a follow up interview on the radio.
Right.
His professionalism, his preparedness for all the questions he was asked, regardless of the fact that he didn't want to get into the semantics of this is how we're going to play, this is what we expect, and quite frankly, he shouldn't be giving that information away right now
Mhm.
because that's going to also tip the hand to some of the players that, oh, I don't fit that style. So, going into the training camp, now that means, if I'm just going to pick on Casey Middlestead because there's a bunch of guys who are in similar positions. If you go into camp with him and he goes, well, they don't want me here. I don't play the style they're looking to play. Your value for moving on from him has plummeted
Right.
because other teams are looking at going, he doesn't play that style. He plays our style. So they're
Right.
going to come to us to try and trade. We don't have to offer him as much.
Right.
So I loved what he didn't give complete non-answers, but he also didn't give away the farm for all of the answers either.
Well, I think too that we have to remember that he also is he's he realizes that the roster as it is right now is not the roster he's going to go into training camp with.
And
There
we have plenty up on the roster.
there's things that are gonna change, you know what I mean? And also, I like the fact that he said, something that I've been saying since day 1, when healthy, their decor is one of the best in the league. They have really good goaltending, and what they need to do is have a different mindset when it comes to the offense, which, his what he said in his press conference when he said, "I told Don and Cam I still love this team." So he looked at what and he said that, obviously he was happy, and it was funny the way he said this. He was happy that the Bruins did as bad as they did last season because
Yeah.
he wouldn't be where he is. You know what I mean? They wouldn't have been looking for a new coach had they not had the season that they had. Um, so I like that he was extremely honest about that. And I like the fact that he knows when healthy that defense is a good defense. And that's how
Yeah.
and that's and he talked about the Bruins being built that way. And that's something that you and I have discussed numerous times, that the Bruins are built from the back end out. So, knowing that you have a good goaltender, a good goaltending tandem, and then you have a good decor in front of them, what are you missing? Secondary scoring. He talked about that. So he touched on all the things that everyone's been complaining about.
Yeah, he also didn't shy away from, as Matrix mentions here, really pumped to be excited. He's going to be a great coach for the Bruins. Firm, stern, no lies, no BS. Direct is something that this team has lacked. But
Correct.
and you mentioned it with, he talked about what we've been complaining about, the issues that we've seen. He also wasn't afraid to even admit that while the defense has been good, they can still add to it and they
Right.
can still strengthen it.
Mhm.
And we'll talk about that as we get into the roster a little bit more. And then Bear Force also follows that up with Sturm was a great choice. Glad they went with him over Sacco and Leach. We know Leach is going to still be on the staff. We know Kelly's going to be on the staff, and we know Asenza wasn't going anywhere anyway.
Correct.
They still have the one opening, and he
Right.
talked about bringing in someone who has power play experience,
Yep.
which is something that we all talked about. You and I talked about that at length. And again, he wasn't afraid to sit there and say, this is a weakness. This is an area we need to improve. And we're going to get someone who can help us with it, or at least has experience in doing that so that we can work together to improve upon it.
Right.
So,
And I think it's important to note too that not only did Sturm say that, but Sweeney doubled down on it. Sweeney,
yes.
he said that him and Sturm have had conversations. They know what type of coach they're looking for. You know what I mean? So they're all looking, they have the same mindset. So it doesn't feel like they're going to be butting heads. It feels like they're going to be working together to bring in the best coach. And, Sweeney touched on the fact that the previous year, the power play was in the top 10 in the league. And then, of course, when they got to the playoffs, it's something about the Bruins in the playoffs. They always like lose their power play in the playoffs for some reason. They did it in 2011, they did it in 2018, they did it last year. You know what I mean? It's like they always lose their power play. But then when they came back this year, as Sweeney said, they brought back 4 or 5 players that were still on that power play. But the problem is that, again, Lindholm was put in the bumper, which he's played before in Calgary, but with his injury, did that affect him? And then they moved Pasternak around to try and compensate for that. Then they lost Hampus Lindholm, they lost Charlie McAvoy. So, like, all those things started snowballing. So it's not like the power play could be of course it's going to be revamped and it's going to get better, but it could have been okay. We don't know if it could have been okay had all those things didn't happen.
Right. And then of course you're mixing guys around to try to
Right.
kickstart it. You're moving guys from the second unit to the first unit. As ridiculous as the notion was, some people were even talking about moving Pasternak down to the second unit or off of it completely. Like people throw wacky shit out there when it's not working.
Right.
And it just, to your point, it you can't really truly assess it That's like
Right.
that's what people were trying to do with Roger McQueen this season as they're scouting him, not playing with a back injury. How do you
Right.
scout a player who's on the bench? You
Right.
can't.
Right.
So you're guessing, and so
Right.
you're going off of other things, and it's not like they forgot how to do a power play. Let's be honest. David Pastrnak didn't forget how to score on the power play. He
Correct.
wasn't getting passes the same way that he was from Bergeron and Marchand when they were on it together. Case in
Correct.
point. So it's just going to take some time to get that back. And he didn't shy away from criticism though, whether he was providing it or whether he was hearing it.
Right.
And it sounds like Sweeney wasn't either, because we
No,
talked about
he
the
made
14 candidates. He made comments that he was given feedback and
Mhm.
it's all important. He didn't
Yep.
specifically say what it was or anything like that, but he made it known that there were coaches that
Yep.
gave outside perspectives,
Yeah.
and he's taking it all into consideration,
Yep.
regardless of what it may be.
Mhm.
So anything that we or any other podcast or show or whatever a writer can come up with, Don Sweeney's probably heard it. So
Yeah, there's no way that even in a, hey, so we have a coaching vacancy, I just want to chat with you for a few minutes, whatever. Any prospective coach is going to say, this is what I saw from the team last year. These are the holes. These are the breakdowns that I saw, because most of them were opposing coaches, opposing assistants. Somewhere along the line, they had some sort of view to what the Bruins were doing last year. And if you say the team was perfect, then of course Sweeney goes, okay, bye, click. You know
right,
what I mean?
and let's be honest, even if you got one person of the 14 who has absolutely no interest in the job and they sit there and they go, hell no, why'd you call me?
Right.
Well, why not? Because you suck at drafting, and I want to have young players on my team. Oh, all right. Well, guess what? He can still take something from that call.
Right.
It wouldn't have gone that unprofessional, but
Mhm.
there would have been a conversation. I can almost guarantee you one of the
Mhm.
14 coaches brought up drafting and developing. I guarantee you one of the 4 coaches brought up the lack of extension for the general manager as a concern. Like, these
Mhm.
things came up completely, 100%. No one's denying that. But Marco Sturm wasn't signing on to be your general manager or to be your head coach because you extended Don Sweeney as your general manager for another 2 years.
No.
That's not why he's the head coach.
When Don Sweeney said at the end of season press conference, when people said, why would a coach want to come here? And he was like, why wouldn't they? You know what I mean? Like,
Mm-hmm.
that's it. It's an original 6 franchise. Why wouldn't a coach want to, like, why did Mike Sullivan go to the Rangers? They're not contender. You know what I mean? Like,
Because they're in New York.
and they're also you know what I mean? There's like, there's,
Right.
there's, Boston is Boston. You know what I mean? New York is New
Right.
York.
Right.
Toronto is Toronto. There's certain selling points that it doesn't matter how good the team is. It's the actual franchise.
Marco Sturm was giddy.
Oh, he was when he said when he made the comment about I don't even know what's going on. It was like the first part where he's like, good morning,
Oh
good
yeah.
afternoon. I have no idea where I am
I
or
had no idea what's
whatever.
going on.
It was just so funny. And he couldn't stop smiling. It was the smile that he had whenever he scored a goal. You know what I mean? In a Bruins uniform. He had that smile on his face. He talked about the culture that he was part of helping build 20 years ago with
Mm-hmm.
Chara and Bergeron. Bergeron was at the press conference. You know what I
Yeah,
mean?
sitting next to his
Like
family.
that's
Now,
amazing in itself.
I'm glad
So,
you mentioned that. I want to say this though, because somewhere in the Twitter sphere, I know I saw it. Don't read too much into that, people. They were line mates. They're friends. So, like, yes, Bergeron was there in support of his friend. That doesn't mean he's joining player development. It doesn't mean he's becoming the assistant coach.
no, but
He was there because he's friends with his former line mate.
the other
Now,
thing is too is that any coach that was line mates with Bergeron, teammates with Chara, they're going to say, "Hey, Can you come and talk to the player? They
Sure,
have that relationship. So
but he's not getting a job
whether
tomorrow.
or not Bergeron joins in an official capacity, he's probably going to be around a lot more
Oh
when
yeah,
his children are in school and he's not in the dad mobile picking up and dropping off. He's probably going to spend a lot more time around the team helping with face-offs. He may not be on the ice all the time, but I can see him being around the team a lot more with Marco Sturm as the head coach.
sure.
Absolutely.
I can absolutely see that too. And eventually he'll probably get some bullshit consultative role or, something like that so they can start cutting him paychecks again. Because at some point he's going to go, hey, the income isn't there anymore.
Mhm.
That bank account is only going one direction these days. Can you help out with that, Jacobs? And they're going to go, yeah, that we need the PR right now. Can we
I mean,
please do this?
he still skates every Friday with Tuca. He skates with Tuca. He skates with Andrew Raycroft, and I forget who else. Like he still skates every Friday.
Yeah, and he was doing the unobstructed views broadcast. Like, it's not that he's
Right.
not involved. It's just he's prioritizing his family, and he
Correct.
will do that
Right.
for a couple more years at a minimum.
Because I don't see him traveling anytime soon.
No,
That's the thing. So joining the team as an official, and now I could be wrong. Maybe Marco Sturm is like, dude, I need you. I need you to be my power play guy. I need you to, help Jay and Chris. I don't know, maybe, but I don't see him 2 years removed going through an NHL schedule again and traveling 82. You know
I
what I
don't
mean?
remember how old his kids are, but his kids are still young. He's
Yeah.
gonna want to be there for his kids.
Yeah.
I would give him probably a good. I would wait until his youngest is at least 12.
Yeah. I mean, he
That would
even
be my
talked about
guess.
when he first retired, he was talking about whether he didn't know if he was going to go back to Quebec or not.
Right.
He still has family up there. And, so him being away from his family, versus Stephanie's family, I mean, there's a lot that people forget about athletes, and like Marco Sturm talked about it today while he was in Ontario, his family wasn't with him.
Yeah, I actually wanted to bring that up because I think that also goes to show just how much he wants to be a
Mhm.
coach
Yeah.
and he wants to be in this position, not
Yep.
just like, oh, I'm an NHL head coach, but in a position where when you look at the team and people are going to look at the team and go, yeah, they're good, but are they that good?
Right.
Are they a cup team? Are they a playoff team? And he wants to be an edge. He wants to be a coach that can go in and say, not only are we a playoff team, but we're going to do things and be more prepared than anybody else to give us every edge possible so we can outduel our opponent, whether it's physically, whether it's offensively, whether it's defensively, whether it's on the coach. We will have every edge that we can give ourselves. And because of that, you're not going to see us coming.
Right.
And
100%.
and he's getting to get started. So that should be the biggest thing is when your new coach comes in and they're not throwing chairs and all this, you know what I mean? Like they're not doing that stuff and they're this excited to get going.
Yeah.
That should tell you something as a fan that, you know what, as down as you are on this team, maybe there is a little bit more optimism than you think.
Mhm.
And the team isn't as bad as you think. Because this is someone who's coming in from the outside. He could very easily have said no to this job and said, yeah, like they could still be searching.
Yeah, he could have stayed in Ontario. He had it made in Ontario.
Other than the family thing, which it
Right.
wasn't enough for 6 years to be an issue. So all of
Mhm.
a sudden it wasn't going to become an issue. But it's the fit just seems to be like he said, it's all in the timing too.
Right.
So I think this press conference, I think everything about it should be exciting to fans. We got Florida Water jumping in with "Let's Go Panthers." I hope they're enjoying watching Brad Marchand down there. Before we pivot to the roster, go ahead.
Well, I was just gonna say, I have no horse in the race. Panthers, Oilers. I'm just enjoying the series. It's good hockey.
Oh my God, it's been so good.
It's been
To- to-
especially the first two games.
oh yeah. You know what? I would say you're welcome for him. Enjoy him while you have him, and
While we're
yeah,
on Marchand, I would like to point out all the people that are like, why didn't we pay him what he wanted? Why didn't we do this? Why didn't we do that? Okay. Brad Marchand is on the third line in Florida.
he was on your first lineup here in Boston.
He was on your first line up here in Boston. He wasn't doing what he's doing in Florida. Number one, the team is not the same. The team surrounding him in Florida is a lot different than what the team is in Boston right now.
Brad Marchand is to the 24-25 Panthers what Taylor Hall was to the 22-23 Boston Bruins.
Right.
It's the comp is 100%.
Yeah.
Someone who has the ability to play on your first line. And think about it. If they get 2 injuries to left wings, he immediately jumps to their top line left wing, and he can do it.
Right.
And he's got that talent, but they don't need him to do it. He's not on their top power penalty kill unit. They can put him on the second power play unit and make a power play unit as deadly as the first because he's on it. Correct. So like, and I know you can sit there and make the argument for they could have gotten more, they should have gotten more, whatever it is. And that's not a wrong statement to say, oh, they should have tried to get more. And okay, you could have put a conditional second pick in there or something like that. But at the end of the day, that deal right there, the Marchand deal, is why Don Sweeney is so well respected around the league. Mm-hmm. And that's why he's able to make moves like bringing in Hampus Lindholm when he made that trade, bringing in Rick Nash when he made that trade. You know, that's why he's able to sign guys like David Pastrnak to an 8-year contract and not have to deal with the crap that Toronto's dealing with Austin Matthews on a 5-year contract. Because when he says we're going to do what we can to build around you in your 8 years here, players know that.
Right.
So it's a respect factor. And if anything were to change, you know, he had a limited no trade clause in his contract. They treated him like he had a full no movement clause. It's the same type of respect that Barry Trotz is showing to Ryan O'Reilly, even though there's no clauses in his contract, right. Because Barry Trotz is intelligent enough and forethinking enough to know he needs to have his word mean something. And right. This is a player who holds weight too. Let's be real. Brad Marchand is a player, just like Ryan O'Reilly, who around the league amongst players, their word means something.
Correct.
So, yeah, you can sit there and say they should have gotten more, but you have to look at the big picture with that deal. Yes, you're getting a first-round pick out of it, and if that's all you get, that's still a pretty good return.
Can we also one thing people are like, oh, look how he's playing, look how he's playing. You remember when he was traded, he was injured. He wasn't playing. They didn't know when he was going to come back, at what capacity. Was he going to be full strength? Was he going to be able to give them what he's giving them? So Sweeney couldn't be, all right, Zito, this is what, you know what I mean? It was more a respect factor to do what Brad Marchand wanted for the better of Boston and to get something in return and to give him the chance to go out there and win a Stanley Cup.
Right. And again, like I said, I would have liked to have seen conditional add-ins and stuff like that. Sure. You know, second move to a conditional first if these two conditions were met, and then a third move to a conditional second if they win the Stanley Cup as part of it. You know, like something like that would have been nice to see, sure. But at a certain point, you just have to get the deal done.
Right.
And you got a first-round pick out of it, whether you choose to move the pick. If it's a later first-round pick, sure, look to maybe move on from it. But at the same time, we don't know what the Panthers are going to look like by the time they get this pick from them.
Well, the other thing is, too, is if you, like, someone asked Sweeney today about the draft capital, and his response was every single coach is saying, what are you doing to help me now? Not what are you doing to help me in the future? So, and that's how Sweeney has always approached it. You know what I mean? He's trying to help the team now. Yes, he does a little bit for the future, but he's always trying to help the team now because the team was competitive enough that they weren't building for the future. I mean, they were. I mean, we talk about that all the time, that those second and third round picks are your replacements and you're this and you're that. And we're not going to rehash that again because we've rehashed it. I don't even know how many times on this podcast. But the thing is that every single coach that's in the NHL, from Paul Maurice to Sheldon Keefe to Mike Sullivan to any coach in between, I don't care who you are. You're not looking at what your team's doing in the draft. You're looking at what's going on the ice game in and game out. That's what your scout, you know what I mean? That's what your scouts are for. That's what your AHL team is for. They're supposed to be getting your prospects ready. You're not focused on that. You're focused on what's in front of you.
Exactly. And that's one of the things as we go through our lineup and stuff like that later on. Yeah. We'll be touching on that even more. But yeah, you have the depth, which is why Edmonton has depth too, and it's had to show through. I mean, think about it. They don't have Zach Hyman right now.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they're getting scoring from Corey Perry.
Right. Well, it's not like Corey Perry hasn't been scoring all season though.
No, for 40 years old.
Corey Perry is actually playing some of his best hockey right now.
Oh yeah. And yeah, that's the thing. All the lines, it's all depth. I mean, you're seeing it from I know he got the over the board penalty, the delay of game penalty, Noshik, but AJ Greer has come into their lineup and performed well. Like it's they are playing in the same style, in the same self-oiled machine style as what we saw for an entire season in 22-23 from the Bruins.
Yeah.
It just it all the wheels fell off in the playoffs that year.
Yeah.
That's it. That's what it comes down to. So
Kevin,
now,
you're not trading Marchand at the beginning of the season.
Or the beginning of the calendar year. I don't know which one he's talking about, but either way, you're not doing it.
Beginning of the new calendar year, unless you knew for sure that you were going to get a deal done. They were always talking about an extension. And at the turn of the calendar year, they were actually, because going into the Christmas break, they were playing their best hockey. They were still in a playoff spot at that point. So you weren't thinking of trading away your captain at that point. So hindsight, yes, but not when it was playing out real time.
Yeah. Now, obviously, there's also a lot of talk about what is Marchand's next contract going to look like and how all that's going to work. I mean, he's 37. Is he? No, yeah, 37 by the time the new contract kicks in. I mean, he's on a sweetheart of a deal still right now. But he wants to cash in. The question is how is he going to cash in?
Right.
What do you think his contract is going to look like? Do you think a team throws a bunch of money at him for like 2 to 3 years?
He's already 37, by the way.
Yeah, but isn't he still going to be 37 when the new contract kicks in?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
As long as I'm not wrong on that part.
Well, but Kevin, why extend a 37-year-old? Were you not gonna sign Bergeron if he wanted to come back? You know what I mean? Like, so I mean,
yeah, and yes, he has been saying all summer, basically all last summer to now, that the team wasn't going to make the playoffs. But Kevin, the season did not play out that way until they decided at the trade deadline and a couple weeks before that they were just moving on from the group. So yeah, things got off to a rocky start. And then, like you said, they were playing their best hockey heading into the Christmas break. They were still in the playoff race. They may not have been over the playoff line some of the time, but they were in the conversation. Hell, they were in second and third place through, I want to say, the beginning of January.
Yeah.
this team was a top 3 team in the division, and then they slowly faded to 3rd and 4th consistently, and then they slowly faded to 4th and 5th. So 100% you were looking at it going, even with the injury to Hampus Lindholm, McAvoy wasn't hurt at the time. If you were saying if Swayman can find his game, the team turns things around. If they can get their power play going, you can turn things around. Elias Lindholm got off to a very slow start. We now know it was because of injury. You're sitting there going, if Elias Lindholm can find his game and be what he was in Calgary, yes, you have people sitting there going, oh, he's washed up. It's never going to happen. Well, guess what? It did happen.
Correct.
That geeky Lindholm Pasternak line did click. Just way too late in the season for it to make a difference. So,
but when you're dealing with a back injury, that's why.
Right. And when Bergeron was still playing, this team wasn't about to rebuild. Yeah. And they were trying to keep that going this year. Based on what they saw last year, there was no reason they couldn't do it. Let's see. They weren't making the playoffs. I know you had all the hope in the world, but they never were. Sweeney ended up doing the right thing, but he should have started sooner. You're not going to start sooner when the facts on paper, Kevin, tell you that you're in the playoff race. That's just not how it works.
No, because if he blew up the team too early and they were still in the playoff race, it would have been even worse.
Guess what, Kevin? Connor McDavid will have no higher value than he does as soon as Edmonton's done playing this year, whether they win a cup or not. His trade value will be at its peak. Every game after that he plays for the Oilers, his trade value is going to go down a little bit. A small amount, because it's just going to be that much less to the contract that the new team is going to get him for. So are you saying that if Edmonton loses the cup now, they should just trade Connor McDavid now? Because that's the same argument. Because it didn't work this year. So you move on from...
It didn't work last year.
Right, exactly. So why didn't they move on from him? Because you're trying to build and grow and bring in the next piece to get you there. And you're using the regular season as an evaluation period up until the trade deadline. Look at all the teams that made the playoffs this year. That's exactly what they were doing. That's what you were doing. So Florida does ask, though, who will our next captain be?
I don't know. I don't even know that Sturm and Sweeney select a captain this year. Maybe they go with all alternates until someone really steps up. Maybe someone steps up. I mean, because Pasternak really took that team on his shoulders after the trade deadline. Well, even before the trade deadline, because Hampus Lindholm was hurt, Charlie McAvoy was hurt, and Brad Marchand was hurt. So it was Pasternak, Brandon Carlo, and Charlie Coyle that were wearing the A's. And then Charlie Coyle got traded, Brandon Carlo got traded, and it was just Pasternak. Like he was left on an island by himself. So is it McAvoy? Is it Pasternak? I don't know. I don't know. I don't know. The Bruins notoriously have gone with defensemen. It's weird that they've had 2 forwards in a row with Bergeron and then Marchand. But if you look at the history, it's been mainly defensemen.
Yeah.
Well, I shouldn't say that. Not mainly defensemen. It just feels like that because Raybork was the captain for so long. Zdeno Chara was the captain for so long. You know what I mean? Bergeron, I mean, we only had Bergeron as a captain for 2 years.
Can you believe that?
And then Marchand a year and a half, a season and a half. You know what I mean? Because Chara was there for so long.
Right.
So I mean, those are the type of things. I personally, Kevin, I agree with you. I think Pasternak should be the captain. But I also can't overlook McAvoy.
I think Pasternak is the guy who ultimately gets it because he is a slightly more seasoned veteran than McAvoy. However, I think Sturm's approach is going to be more of the right now we have a couple A's. Someone has to go above and beyond to get the C.
But the other thing is that you have to keep in mind is that the captain isn't just there for the fans or or if the captain has has the voice in the locker room, has the voice in practice, has the voice and it could be that Hampus Lindholm steps up. It could, you know what I mean?
That's what I mean. I think
Like, because
ultimately,
Pasternak at one point didn't want to be captain. He
I think
and
that's changed though.
he even said at the end of season press conferences, at breakup day, that it's a committee. Like, the leaders of the team were constantly talking, and they were still going to talk throughout this offseason. And included in that conversation, it wasn't just McAvoy and Swayman and Pasternak. It was Zadorov. It was Elias Lindholm. It was Hampus Lindholm. So just because they may have only been on the team for one season in Zadorov and Elias Lindholm, they're still veterans in the NHL, and they have veteran voices for the younger players, the newer Bruins. They've already embraced the culture that is the Boston Bruins. So it doesn't matter. I mean, Chara, he was named captain the day he came in.
He was brought in to be that captain.
Well, he basically said, "I'm captain. Like, you're giving you to sign here. You're making me captain." You know what I mean? Like, that was kind of like, I mean, did he deserve it? Eventually he did. I mean, I don't think a lot of people really knew what he was coming out of Ottawa at that time.
Kevin, the facts on paper were that they were out of a playoff spot, and statistics were against them to make the playoffs in January. Kevin, again, they were flirting with the top spot in the East in December. All right. In January, yes, things started to go downhill. Yes, some of the statistics were not favorable, like the power play, for example. All right. And then they only got worse. All right.
Well, you have to remember too, Swayman was playing his best hockey going into the Christmas break. He had won 4 out of 5 games. He was it looked like he was starting to turn the page.
It looked like the entire team was turning a page. And it looked like those statistics you could throw out the window and go, the team finally figured it out. Unfortunately, right around, when did Mark Kostelik get his first concussion? Wasn't that in January?
I think it was.
So then you started getting injuries to the bottom of your lineup. And it just, the whole thing never came together the way that it should have. Yes, hindsight, you can sit there and say, well, they should have entered the season and dealt off these pieces and gotten so much more. Sure, we know that now. But when the season was going on, and yes, Kevin, I know you're tooting your own horn for saying this all along, but the fact of the matter is, during the course of the season, you cannot look at it from that perspective of, well, the statistics say this, so we have to give up on our team even though it's November 1st. Like, you have to continue to see, what are we capable of? Can we turn it around? What's it going to take for us to turn it around? And then when December comes along and you go into the break and you see the team turning it around, actively turning it around, you can go, we don't need to look at those statistics anymore. We're going to come back from the break and hopefully have a new leaf turned over, and we're going to be able to go on the run that we thought we were capable of. And then it didn't happen. So, yeah, we're going to agree. We're not going to agree. Again,
we'll agree to disagree.
I'm going to give you the clap because you were right. Hopefully that makes you feel better, but that doesn't mean in the moment it's the right decision to just give up on things.
Florida Water, why are you laughing?
Probably because I was tooting Kevin's horn for a minute there. Yeah. And yes, it is a travesty that Bergeron was only captain of the team for 2 years.
I agree.
So,
I agree 100%.
But I hate to see Florida doing as well as they are. I'm glad for Brad Marchand. Two things can be true.
I don't hate Florida. I know.
Okay, you're right. I hate Sam Bennett.
But you would love him if he was a Bruin.
Not as much as I want to say yes, because a lot of what he does, I didn't like it when Marchand was
100%,
and when he was pulling cheap shots. So 100%. I like Brad Marchand because of what he turned into, but I was still at the time saying you can't do that. You got to be better.
Oh.
And I will say the same thing about Sam Bennett. You
Oh,
got to be
100%.
better. But if he
100%.
can mature in the same way Marchand did, I'd absolutely love the guy. So
Oh, there were times where I was like, Bruins fans are defending Brad Marchand. I'm like, how? How are you defending him for that slew foot? How when he got suspended before the Winter Classic at Gillette, I was pissed. I was 100% pissed. He
oh
put
yeah,
the team at a disadvantage because he made a stupid bone ass move. You know what I mean? And how do you defend that? How do you defend that?
yeah. There are just certain things that if you can't objectively say that that's just wrong to do, is what it is. And
Hi,
uh,
Dom.
Dom, thanks for jumping in. We can't wait. Hopefully the family's doing well and you're hanging in there. I agree. Bring back John Gruden. I actually threw out to Dom a couple months ago that I wanted to see if they would consider John Gruden for the head coaching job.
I'm sorry. I'm laughing at Florida water. I'm sorry if you think Sam Bennett is better than Connor McDavid. I don't know what you're
Hold on.
smoking.
Better at what? Let's clarify, because if he's better at being a cheap artist, sure, he's right. But if he's saying better overall at hockey, sorry, go smoke somewhere else.
Hmm.
I do like Bear Force comment here, though. Love Florida's roster. Barry Zito is the best GM in the league. I don't know if we have enough of a sample size to say he's the best GM in the league just yet. He's certainly at the top of the league, but we have to see how he's able to keep the window open as next season they have Marchand, Bennett, Noshik, Nico Sturm. They're all unrestricted free agents. Sam Iskevich is a restricted free agent. They're losing Ekblad and Vitek Vanacek behind Bobrovsky. I like the move on from Spencer Knight. So like he's doing good things, but we have to see, is he able to keep this up for another 5 years? Or is it just fizzle out after 26, 27, and it was just another great run for a short
Right.
window, which is kind of what we're starting to see in Tampa Bay.
Correct.
So
It's also what we're starting to see in Boston.
Yeah. That's why they made the moves that they did to move on from Carlo and Coyle. And yeah, we can throw Frederick and Brazeau in there, but Marchand was the big one there. So let's see. McDavid is leaving the Oilers for sure. I don't know about that. I don't know. I think they're planning to do their best to keep him. And at a certain point, I think he's going to sit there and go, is the grass greener?
Oh, we're gonna have Kevin throw down with Florida water.
Florida must be hot down there. Might want to get into some AC. Your brain isn't working right. Nice. Always love the friendly trash talk there. But I did want to get back to a question I had asked about Brad Marchand. Because actually, shout out to Short Shift. Those guys, one of them, I think it was Thomas, sent out a tweet earlier today about I think it was Chris Johnson had mentioned a 3 to 4 year contract for Brad Marchand. Would you go 4 years on Marchand?
At 37, meaning he would be 41 at the end of his contract?
Mm-hmm.
I don't see why not.
Would you go 5?
No.
See, I'd
go 3 to 4.
Us Florida people crazy. Yeah, we know that.
Well, it's funny. I used to live in Florida for a very short period of time, and people would ask me where I was from, and I would say New Hampshire, and they'd be like, "Where?" I'm like, "New Hampshire." Where? New Hampshire. Where? Boston. Oh, okay.
Yeah, right.
Like,
yeah, Dom is right. Florida is a dynasty in the cap world. As of right now, yes. But the question, Dom, is can
3
they
years.
continue it?
3 years.
But
3 years in a row.
Yeah.
Unless you talk. Oh, he's talking about the Oilers. Never mind. I was correcting Kevin, but then I realized he was talking about the Oilers and not Florida, because Florida's been in the cup 3 years. Or Edmonton's 2.
This one here. Oh yeah, I don't see why McDavid would go anywhere unless you go to Florida, where what situation is better for him. Yeah. Bye Florida water.
Thanks for joining.
Thanks for joining in, and we'll see you soon. Hopefully you're back on again sometime with us. But the reason why I ask about a 5-year option for Marchand, I look at the contract that Yanni Gord just signed.
Mm-hmm.
and I go, I wonder if a team is going to go, we'll give you 5 years so that we can pay you what you're looking for dollar-wise and lower the cap hit. Now, the example, because Thomas, when he sent out the tweet, I was worried about the more than 3 years. So the numbers and the example that I gave was if you did a 4-year contract at 8.75 AAV, that's a $35 million contract for Marchand. Even if he doesn't play the 4th year, he's still going to get paid that 8.75 in the final year as long as he doesn't retire. Even if you're LTIRing him because he's injured or whatever. So we've seen Toronto do it. We've seen Tampa do it. I can almost guarantee you some other team is going to look at it and go, we can do 4 years for that. We can add on 1 extra year to pay you more overall, because if you look at that same amount over 3 years, at $10 million for 3 years, it's only $30 million. That 4th year gives him an extra $5 million.
Right.
And if he's playing like this now, tell me what team wouldn't take that chance?
But you can't just. But
what contending team isn't going to take the chance on the $5 million for that extra year, biting him in the ass if they think Marchand is the team that can put him over within the next 3 years, like in Edmonton or Toronto?
But the problem that I have with Marchand, and I love Marchand, okay? The problem I have with Marchand is the amount of surgeries and injuries he's had throughout the years. Yes, he's been able to bounce back so far. Can he still bounce back 4 years from now?
Absolutely a concern. 100% a concern. That's a concern for the 1st year of the contract, let alone the 2nd, 3rd, and 4th year of the contract. But if take that contract that I just mentioned, $35 million over 4 years. If you're Toronto, isn't that worth the risk for you?
I don't know. Because
if you make your left side Matthew Nyes and Brad Marchand as 2 of your top 3 left wings.
And who's giving him the puck?
I mean, right now you're still looking at Matthews. I know there are other things that Toronto has to do.
So if you're
talking Edmonton, if Edmonton loses now.
But does Marchand want to go to Toronto? Probably not. And Marchand's not going to just go for a paycheck. Now, if he wins the Stanley Cup this year, then he may just go for a paycheck. But I don't see that. That's not I don't know. I'm not sure that that's Marchand. You know what I mean?
All I'm saying is I can see a team putting it on the table. Whether he takes it or not is a totally different. It's a totally different conversation, and only he can decide that, because that's up to him and his family.
I think he wants to, wherever he signs, it's ending his career. He doesn't want to go sign a short deal and move on, short deal and move on. He wants whatever. So if he takes a 3-year deal, I see him retiring in 3 years. If he takes a 4-year deal, I see him retiring in 4 years. As long as his body puts up with it, too.
Yeah, that's going to be the one factor that you can't control over the term is his body. And then he'll obviously have one other contract after that. That's the promotional 1-day Boston contract, so he can retire as a Bruin, because we know that's coming. Dom said if a Florida person asked you where you were from and you said Kitchener, they would know where that is. Let's see. And then Bear Force says McDavid and Eichel potentially will both be UFAs. Can we just get them both?
And then everyone would yell at Sweeney for spending too much money and not having enough complementary pieces.
Yeah, you're turning them into the Maple Leafs. That would be the argument. I wonder how many Bruins fans think he's coming back to the Bruins, Marchand. I hope we can put that to bed. He's not coming back. Not other than for that 1-day contract. So,
no.
But what else do we have before we dive into the lineup, into the roster?
Well, let's talk about that Marco Sturm is basically saying that he wants the younger players to infuse into the lineup, and that he fully expects them to make mistakes, but learning from them is the big part, and because he expects even his older players to make mistakes. Him being a former player, especially for Boston, he understands the fan base, he understands the city, and he understands pretty much everything that encompasses the Bruins because he was part of what built the culture here. And I love the fact that he mentioned that while he wasn't a part of the 2011 team that won the Stanley Cup, he was part of the resurgence that built that team.
Yep. He's self-aware enough to know also what he needs to improve on or where he needs to ask for help. And I do wonder how much that kind of self-awareness is going to help him in the sense of Montgomery had been a head coach before. Joe Sacco had been a head coach before. Now, granted, he wasn't the best head coach before, but he had done the job before. Sacco knows, or not Sacco, Sturm knows what his limitations are, even when he's been in the position before. So let's see. Kevin says Sturm is treating this like a rebuild. I love that. Let the kids play and don't overspend in free agency. It's fine to miss the playoffs again if that's what happens. I don't think he's really treating it like a rebuild. I think he's treating it as a reset.
A retool.
I wouldn't even, I would say he's looking, because right now he's looking at it as this is the roster that I have until Don Sweeney changes it.
No, he already said he knows that things are going to be different. He already said that they need more upfront. He said that in the press conference today.
When talking about style. Now, he knows that the roster is going to be different because the roster is going to turn over and all the contracts are going to reset come July 1. So he's looking at it in terms of, yes, some things are going to change, but overall, the players that are currently under contract, until they're traded, are here for me to play and put them where they're going to succeed.
Correct.
He talked about finding places where players are going to be put in positions to succeed. I think one of the things that it also means is they're not going to be afraid to buy someone out if they think that someone can replace that player, or maybe not buy someone out just because of when the windows are, but
Sweeney doesn't buy people out.
No.
Hello, Mike Riley.
They'll waive them in camp though. I don't think they're going to be worried about waiving a veteran if a young kid plays better.
No, I 100% agree with you. But again, we always talk about this. Who are they pushing out? You know what I mean?
Yep.
So is a younger player going to push out David Pastrnak, Pavel Zacha? There's your roster.
I was going to say, here's a fresh one that we can work on, that we can pull up and come to a consensus on, I guess. So first and foremost, we got some RFAs that need to be worked on, and you and I can go so far into this as far as even Providence and all that stuff, but we don't have to do that. Let's see. He's planning on seeing what we have in our young kids. I love that, Kevin. So do I. But if they don't beat out a player to make the roster, then he's not going to play them. So, and then Sweeney bought out Seidenberg his first year. Yeah, it's not a standard practice for him though. But again, not necessarily through buyout, but he could explore it. I wouldn't be surprised if they explore it. But let's see. And I don't think Sturm would have been allowed to say that about the young kids if Sweeney wasn't for it, because at the end of the day, Sweeney is the one who gives Sturm the roster.
But Sweeney said it last year. At the end of this, before, not this past season, the season before, he said he expected the prospects to push for a spot in camp. He expected them. So Sweeney's been saying this for years, but the problem is the players aren't making that push.
They're not doing it to a point where they're forcing their hand.
Correct. The only one that
So,
has was Matthew Poitras, and that was because they weren't sending him back to juniors.
right. It was a
Otherwise,
different hand.
right, because otherwise he would not have made the roster.
So I think we're both in agreement that Morgan Geekie returns
Yep.
and is re-signed. Now, I know they're used a lot for projections. Where do you fall in on AFP Analytics 4 years, $6.5 million contract for Geeky? Do you see it being higher, lower? Again, just as a ballpark figure to go off of.
I go a little bit lower. I don't mind the year. It's the 6.5. I don't think the sample size is big enough for 6.5. Maybe.
See, I look at it and I go, if you're going to get him at 6.5 range, you're probably going to get him at 6.75 range for 5 years. You're going to push him until he's 31 because you get one more year of unrestricted free agency from him. That's my thought.
But you think he's going to get the 6?
If you go to that 5th year, yes. I think if you go 3 years, I think otherwise, he's going to want to try and hit unrestricted free agency sooner to try and cash in again sooner, because if you look at his growth as a player, he's going to sit there and go, one more 30-point season and I can cash in.
Yeah, but not all players think that way. Okay? Not all players think that way.
And I know he wants to be a Bruin.
Right. And Sweeney is the one that brought him here and said, we're going to give you the
Let's see.
chance.
One thing I know is that you have to roll with Geeky, Lindholm, and Pasta. Yes, Kevin.
Yes.
And Tyler, yes, that's what we're going off of, is the 4 years, 6.5 million AAV that they're projecting. We're trying to come to a consensus as to, is that where he falls or not?
Probably.
I mean,
if he's going to give Lindholm, if he was going to give Lindholm 8, he's going to give Geeky 6. So.
Yeah, true. We'll put the 6.5 number in. Again, it's just for the sake of having that spot filled. Let's see. I do think Oliver Wahlstrom gets re-signed and is sent down to Providence to start the season. I think that was a waiver claim that they looked at and said we can try and work with him. I think people are going to panic when they re-sign him, just like they do with Patrick Brown.
Mm-hmm.
But I think he'll end up in Providence. Do you see them re-signing Jacob Lauko?
Yes. Unless the only way I don't see him re-signing Jacob Lauko is if he fills that role with another Mark Kastelik. You know what I mean? Like if he finds another one of those that looks like it's a throw-in. You know what I mean?
Yeah, if you're looking at a bigger deal and you're going to get a second piece back. Yeah.
Otherwise they re-sign him. Yes.
Now AFP Analytics has him at a 1 year. Go ahead.
He played better when he came back. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Let's see. Dom says, unless you're a star, every agent is pushing for 2 years or less, so the player can be a UFA again for the $103 million cap. That's
true.
That's kind of where my thought process is. They're pushing for that 2 year to 3 year range. 3 years if the player is really adamant about term and wanting longer term. But I mean, especially for a potential 30-goal scorer 3 times in a row, I would think he'd want to go something shorter. So, and Kevin says, I wish Dom was here to talk about the draft. He's like Yoda with that shit. Yes, we pray for him every week. He's in our thoughts all the time. Dom, we definitely miss you. And Kevin, we will have plenty on the draft. There's more to come on that. Couple weeks away still. So, and let's be honest, no one from this draft is making the roster next year. Realistically, you might have a long shot, but I really don't see anyone that the Bruins pick is being roster ready coming into camp. So, AFP
No, because
Analytics. Go
there's
ahead.
no one in the draft class that's beating out anyone that's in Providence right now.
Right. AFP Analytics has Jacob Lauko at a 1-year, $1.73 million contract. I do agree with Dom that they would probably go for more of a 2-year, like $1.5 million contract. Just because if you're going to re-sign him at that point, you're not just going to offer him the 1 year. You went and traded for him to come back. So I think there's enough, good faith between the two teams that you would do him the solid, take him right up to unrestricted free agency,
Right.
and let him test the open market on that. And I don't think 1.5 is a massive overpay for what he can bring you when he's in the lineup.
Correct.
Now, what about John Beecher?
So knowing that he was fighting something last season, I think that they extend him an offer sheet. But knowing that there's not a real good sample size, I think he's more on the lower level. But I do believe.
I want to say I'm pulling him up real quick. His offer sheet, I want to say, is $850K. I mean, if someone wants to offer him more than that, I don't see why you would match that. And let's see, his qualifying offer is $875K.
Yeah.
I don't see why you wouldn't extend him that. And then if someone, decides to beat it, just, barring it being for no picks,
Right.
just sitting there saying, all right, go ahead. Thanks.
Right.
You get a pick back for him and it's all set kind of thing. Most of these other guys I think would end up in Providence if you do bring them back. So I don't want to waste a lot of time, with the exception of Mason Lohrei.
I'm not sure who Sedinov ends up in Providence.
Okay. You want to do Hustadinov first or Mason Lohrei?
Yeah. Let's just, since we've already done majority of the, yeah.
Let me see. I'm going to pull up his qualifying offer. Do you think he would get more than his qualifying offer? He's also at 875.
No. No, I think his sample size was too small.
I also think that you can get him through to he's like Jordan Osterley was last year. If you waive him and he goes down to Providence, great, you still have him. But if you waive him and someone decides to claim him, you're not going to lose sleep over it.
Right.
Real quick, Stefan is asking what injury Beecher was fighting through last year. It was an upper body. Was it a hand injury? I'm trying to remember what it was.
I'm looking to see if I can find the transcript. I have it saved somewhere.
Let me see. Oh, no, they never disclosed it.
He talked about it.
Okay.
He talked about it at the end of season, but I don't see the. I know that he said it after.
Let's see. April 23rd article I'm reading here. It still says undisclosed. And then it said it's not clear if the 24-year-old's injury will impact his summer trading or availability for the start of the preseason.
Right, because it wasn't. What did Sweeney say about? I thought Sweeney said that he had a procedure done.
He was having surgery. Yeah, I just
Right.
I don't remember what the.
Right.
If you can find it, let us know.
No, because even McLaughlin said, and it was McLaughlin that I was standing next to. Okay.
And then last but not least is Mason Lohrei. Now, Mason Lohrei also has a qualifying offer of $875K. Let me see. AFP Analytics has both a short-term and long-term deal option for him. The short-term being 2 years by $3 million, and the long-term being 6 years by $5.4 million.
I don't see Sweeney going the long term.
I
Not
don't see
after
him
the season.
going.
Not after he had the season last year.
But
Mm-mm.
Dom, I know he says weren't his feelings hurt because of fan talk. Well, Dom, if you remember, you and I had the conversation. I started it early. Would you bring him back? And I said no. So maybe we know Morgan Geeky was paying attention to Twitter. So maybe he was maybe Beecher was paying attention to our show. And correct me if I'm wrong, Dom, but doesn't a 2-year contract walk Mason Lohrei to unrestricted free agency?
Yeah, but you have to remember. Look at Jake DeBrusk, right? Sweeney
Right.
always goes on the lower end unless the person has 100% proven themselves time after time after
That's what I
time.
mean.
So that's why I don't think Sweeney goes long term with Lohrei.
I don't think he goes long term either, but I'm just wondering if 2 years is the term. I think he goes with a 1-year deal. Because if Sweeney has to extend him his qualifying, Mason Lohrei is 24 years old. And so that would take him up to 26. Let's see. I can also let you know, Dom, because I'm sure this plays a factor in it. He is January 17th birthday of 01. So I'm pretty sure he would be an unrestricted free agent once the 2-year contract is over. If not, then I can totally see him doing 2 years. I think Sweeney is going to look at it and say, we want that last year of restricted free agency to remain on the table. So until 27. Okay.
Yeah, he has to be 27 or 7 years.
Okay, it's 20. I was thinking it was 26.
No, it's 27.
Okay. So then it would be 2027. So then maybe, yeah, I could see the 2 years then.
And he has to play for at least 40 games a season.
I don't see that being a problem, though.
How many games did he play his first season?
Oh, he would have to play all of those seasons, so that might be an issue. Mason Lohrei has 41 and then 77.
Okay. So, yeah.
Definitely something to think about. His age as of September 15th in the year his contract expires. Okay. I knew Dom would know. So thank you, Dom. So then we'll just use their 2-year, $3 million, because that doesn't seem out of the realm. And I'd rather overshoot it a little bit. It's not an unfair contract, though. And then Mitchell, Wallstrom, Callahan, Masuel, Farinacci, Kuntar, Merkulov, Bavaro, Nelson.
Yeah, we're going into Providence. I want to.
Those would all be Providence.
Yeah.
So, all right. Now the fun part, lining them up.
Mm-hmm.
Geeky, Lindholm, Pasternak, we know has to be your top line with how they ended the season.
Right.
What are you doing for your second line as of right now, based on what we have here?
I put Zucker on the wing. Middle stat in the middle.
Okay. I think we can both agree that for sure Kostelic is your 4C.
Yeah, but can you pronounce his name right? Because it always bothers me when you mispronounce it. It's Kostelic.
Kostelic?
Yeah. Sorry.
It's okay. I'll get it right eventually. Just keep correcting me on it.
Night, Dom. Thank you for your
Good
input.
night, Dom. Hopefully your grandson's doing well. Your grandkids are both doing well. And
listen, he was eating hot dogs with his grandson.
I know. It made me hungry. I didn't want to say anything because it already made me hungry.
I'm eating my hot tamales.
So that's the good thing is running your own show. You don't have to worry about not eating.
Hot tamales.
So still some holes. Let's see. I think I really liked the speed that Lauko and Hustadinov had around Fraser Mitten on the third line last year. Kevin says I'm throwing Poitras or Lysell on the second line with Zacha and Middle.
I think Zacha plays better on the wing than he does in the center.
I agree with that. See, I get to this point and I go, you have too many NHL players not getting pushed out of the lineup, and you don't have enough young players that are pushing. Oh, and I got to move Beecher into the fourth line left wing spot.
Yep.
And then for now, I will move Poitras out of that spot because I don't see him being the right wing on the fourth line.
I'm just eating candy, though.
Yeah, Kevin, when she starts eating a burrito, I'll let you know.
That's not happening.
So, or a burger, or going out to the I think there was one stream, Kevin, correct me if I'm wrong, there was one stream we were doing and he went out and his pizza got delivered.
Dude,
so
really?
He took 2 minutes to go and grab his pizza at the door. So we were having fun. And that doesn't, I mean, then we had one stream, we did a trade deadline stream that was like 6 hours long with Dom at one point. That was a lot of fun.
Now I'm looking at this lineup and I don't have a problem with this lineup.
But
I don't necessarily think that if he has a really good camp, that he's automatically going to start in Providence. But a lot of people think Poitras is going to start in Providence. But I don't see why he wouldn't be on your third line.
I think they look. Hold on. William now says, "Are we sold on the fact that Minton is above Poitras?" No, I think they're trying to figure out whether or not Poitras can reach a second line center role, or if they want to rely on Middlestead to be that second line center. I think Middlestead was brought in to light a small fire under Matthew Poitras' ass, not in a bad way, but in a way of, pushing him. Because, and I know a lot of people are on the Marco Rossi train right now to trade for him, but Marco Rossi is smaller than Matthew Poitras. So for playmaking center for your second line, bringing in Marco Rossi, unless you're sending out Matthew Poitras, which you'd probably have to do, one, that swap doesn't make any sense. You're more familiar with Matthew Poitras. You have more team control over him in the long term. That doesn't make sense to me. Swapping Poitras for Rossi. Go lay down.
Are you talking to the dog again?
Yes, I am.
Sorry, my husband just waved goodnight to me because he's going to bed because he gets up and leaves the house before 5:30.
And now he was looking at me dumbfounded. Like, really? Did you just tell me to go lay down? Yes, I did. Let's see. I think Middlestead was brought in solely because Don needed to ice a team and not gut Providence down the stretch.
Yeah, I mean, I gotta kind of almost agree with Kevin on that one. I'm not sure that it was that deep bringing in Middlestead, that it was to give Poitras a push. I gotta.
Well, no, I meant in the sense of like you need to let him develop and finish growing as a person, like physically. And so Middlestead is kind of a bridge player to get to Poitras. But if you can get him to push himself and weight train and put on the extra muscle, then he can beat him out. That's where I think it comes into play. Now, see, when I mentioned a buyout before, Casey Middlestead is the guy I was thinking of.
Okay.
I'm actually going to pull up. I haven't actually looked at the buyout number. Let me see if I can get back to the buyout page. Whoops. Puckpedia, gotta love all the tools they have. What is just because I mean, what is that? A little over 10 mil over 4 years buyout. As it stands right now, it would be an actual cap hit of 1.5 million this coming season, 3 million the following season, and then 1.75 for 2 seasons. So the buyout's not terrible.
I'm not sure that he needs to be bought out or just moved. You know what I mean? Like,
well, and that's the other thing is Casey Middlestead is only 26.
right.
Couldn't you just waive him after camp?
Well, the other thing is too is that I'm not sure that Fraser Mitten beats him out of camp if Potter's ready and Potter's your second line center, that Casey Middlestad's not your third line center.
But he could also play left wing.
Right.
And that's where I keep going back and forth and I'm just going to move Hustadinov. I could see a world where you have Middlestead and Zacha on the wing with Poitras and Minton down the middle.
Right. I would put Zacha where Middlestead is, though.
Yeah, probably. And then, because then you could.
I agree, William. I think that Middlestead gets, because again, it was a short sample size. It was after the trade deadline. It was when the team purely sucked. They're going to give him a bigger look. They're not going to just, unless they bring, I mean, in a perfect world, in Chris's world, they're going to bring in Mitch Marner anyways.
It's not my world. I would avoid Mitch Marner at the contract. So just based on this, all right, and I moved Hustadinov to the left on the fourth line, because Kastelik to the right wing, fourth line, and then put Beecher in the middle, just because that's probably how you would line up a fourth line with those three guys. You have 13.5 million in cap space. You're not giving all of that to Mitch Marner.
No.
So that's one reason why I'm out on Marner. I don't think Marner wants to come to Boston. That's another thing. Can we factor in that side of it as well?
Why?
Why doesn't he want to go back to Toronto?
Would you want to go back to Toronto?
Would you want to come to Boston after going up against Boston all that time and with
Absolutely.
the similar media style?
No, 100%. No way. Toronto media and Boston media are completely different.
I know they're different, but it's the same kind of spotlight.
No, it's not. It's different. It's different. Fan base is different too.
I think Boston isn't going to be the most appealing to him when you have offers from Utah and Vegas.
Why?
Anaheim.
Well, maybe Vegas, but Utah? Why the frig would he want to go to a team that is not making a cup final anytime soon?
Well, I mean, money. They have more money that they can throw at him.
But see, that's the whole thing, that everyone is automatically going to money. Everyone automatically goes to money. Not every single player is about money.
No, I agree with that. But if you
spent your entire career in Toronto and you couldn't make it out of the first round, only once have you made it to the second round since 1967. Wouldn't you rather go and get yourself a Stanley Cup before you get your payday? Let's be honest. Are you going for your payday or are you going for a Stanley Cup?
There are teams that you can do both.
And Utah's not one of them.
I don't think they're as far away as you're describing in this moment, honestly, because they have some really good young talent and they have the new ownership, and the new ownership is willing.
And you think
to make them.
And
Keep in
and
mind, they
use
dealt for Miguel Sergachev their
right.
first season when they didn't even have a
Okay.
team name.
Okay, but listen, do you understand that they have a brand new coach? They have, hello, they have a brand new coach. They are like everyone else are going through so many changes. Why would he go there instead of, like you said, Vegas, who
Uh,
is a lot closer to a second Stanley Cup than Utah is?
I mean, there are plenty
And
of teams because you could also point out
and no
Florida.
taxes. And no taxes.
Yeah, you could also point out Florida,
Yeah, but
who could go for another cup. Edmonton, who could go for another cup.
Florida doesn't have the cap space for him.
No, but with your argument of it's not always about the money, if you're
No,
looking
it's
for the
not
cup,
always about the money, but there is no cap space. They can't bring back Bennett. They can't, you know what I mean? So they're not going to waive Bennett
they
and then
can
go
make
and
other
get Marner.
moves. They can go 10% over the cap during the summer, and they can make other moves to make them fit.
I understand that, but they're not going to give up one of their heart and soul of their team to bring in Marner. When Sam Bennett has more playoff goals than Marner in 2 years than Marner has in his entire career.
I don't disagree. All I'm saying is with the line of thinking of it's not always about the money, you can't rule out a team like Florida making some moves. Carolina, I think, will make a solid push for him because they tried for
I think
Rantanen.
Mikko Rantanen saying that he doesn't want to play in I think that is going to be a sticking point for a lot of players. There are a lot of players that are saying that they will not go to Carolina or they didn't want to stay in Carolina, that I think that that's going to be a sticking point. That there's a lot of things that like players see that we don't see.
Oh, sure, absolutely.
Number one.
I
The
think they're
other
going
thing
to get
is,
heavy consideration though.
right. But the other thing is, Chris, you're right. They may be playoffs next year. Being in the playoffs and making a Stanley Cup final and winning a Stanley Cup is different because the Bruins made the playoffs for 10 straight years and they only had, you know what I mean? So, like, let's not talk about being a playoff team. When you are talking about a true contender, who are the true contenders in the NHL right now?
Yeah, no, I hear what you're saying. Vegas is one of them. Dallas is one of them, which I think we can rule Dallas out because they just got Rantanen signed to his extension.
Mhm.
Although I will say, I think a dark horse could be Colorado because if they move on, if they find a way to move on from Natchez and Coyle, there's money right there.
Yeah, but the other thing is too is that why don't these players want to stay in Colorado?
Um,
So
my
again, you
my
have to.
understanding is not all of them want to be, I guess, for lack of better phrasing, pushed by McKinnon the way he pushes them.
Mhm.
But if you want to win, if your priority is the cup, wouldn't you welcome that?
Okay, but I've been around Charlie Coyle. I've seen him before, I mean, after good games, after bad games. I've seen the way he carries himself in the Bruins culture. There's no way that Charlie Coyle wouldn't welcome someone pushing him.
I don't think that's the issue for Coyle. I think the issue that they're seeing with Coyle is an on ice issue. And of the two, Coyle is the one who's more likely to stay. So, and Coyle also has, well, he's got the movement protection. So there's a little bit there. But I that's the thing is I don't see Marner coming to Boston for a multitude of reasons.
But you know what? Back in 2005, no one thought Chara was going to come to Boston.
Yeah.
I don't know. Marco Sturm, David Pasternak, Charlie McAvoy, Hampus
I thought you
Lindholm.
didn't want him either.
Oh, I I don't want to overpay for him. I would take Mitch Marner in a heartbeat, but I don't want to overpay for him.
Oh, I don't want to overpay for him either. So, and I think there are going to be other teams that are willing to overpay him,
right? And
have a good.
But I also, I'm not sure that Marner. I think that if Marner could be on a team where he doesn't have to be the number one star,
Yeah,
that would also be enticing after what he went through in Toronto. Now, the thing about Toronto is he got blamed for everything.
Oh, yeah.
Whether Matthews performed or not, he got blamed for it. Well, whether goaltending performed or not, he got blamed for it. Well, whether Sheldon Keefe screwed up his lines or not, he got blamed for it. Whether Craig Berube did something wrong, he got blamed for it. Mitch Marner was the punching bag of Toronto.
Well, that's the best selling point you have if you're Boston. Our punching bag is always our goalie.
Exactly.
So there's your sell point. I do like Kevin's point. They're probably bored in Colorado.
I don't know. Colorado weed is legal.
Yeah, William says that someone will give Marner 14 plus. That doesn't mean Marner's going to sign that contract, though, William. That's kind of the debate we're having right here, because I think Anaheim's going to come out with a massive offer. I think they're going to come out with 7 by 14 and a half. They're going to do something crazy. Doesn't mean he's going to take it.
See, Marner, to me, I think he gets a bad rap in Toronto, number one. Number two, he's not Tyler Bertuzzi. He's not going where the paycheck is. Tyler Bertuzzi went where the money is. He 100% went where the money is. Because he could have stayed in Toronto.
Oh, yeah.
That's the difference. Now, Chicago has plenty of room.
Mitch Marner has made, I'm trying to see if I can figure out roughly how much he's made. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's almost 66. He's made almost $70 million so far. 65 in his last contract, and his first contract, his ELC was for 2.6. So you're talking about $68 million roughly. He doesn't have to chase a massive, massive contract.
No. I see him taking a little bit less. Not a lot less, but a little bit. He's not resetting the market.
He could, but I don't think so.
He doesn't need to. You know what I mean? He doesn't need to be the one to reset the market.
I could also see, you mentioned Vegas. I could see them moving on from Stone or Hurdle to make room for Marner.
Mm-hmm. And would you rather play with Jack Eichel and play for Bruce Cassidy, or go to Utah?
Oh, of the two, I'm going for Vegas every time.
But that's what I'm saying. Not everyone is going to go just for the paycheck.
Right.
Are a lot of people going to go for the paycheck? Yeah, but not every player is going to go for the paycheck.
And honestly, if I'm Boston, if Vegas is looking to move on from Hurdle, I pick up the phone. I mean, they were willing to get involved in moving William Karlsson. They moved on from Marchessault. I have no doubt, especially after what they did to Fleury, Stone, the best thing for him is that no trade clause. He's got a full no move clause, so he doesn't have to go anywhere if they don't want to, although I think Fleury had one too. So I would be keeping an eye on Vegas because they do know that they have to shake things up as well.
Right.
But I know I kind of started talking about Jason Robertson, and now it's kind of out there from others, just given the situation Dallas is in. I don't see him being the right piece for them to do a cap dump with, because they don't need that much money. They just need a little bit of flexibility. Now, if you're gonna get Robertson from them, I think you're gonna also have to take on Matt Dumba, and then you have the opening on the right side, but I don't trust Matt Dumba for an 82 game season.
Gotta say goodnight to my daughter. Hold on.
Go right ahead. Yeah, Kevin. I mean, Colorado's a nice place though, so I definitely don't see, and they're skiing, so I don't see
Thank you.
Colorado being the problem. Let's see. Marner never took a hometown discount in Toronto. I think he follows the money. He also was the punching bag, though. So you're going to get paid extra to
It
be
is,
that
yeah,
punching bag.
because yeah, there's a difference between taking a hometown discount for a team that you're destroyed day in and day out for, and the team around you.
Let's
And
put
the
it this
team-
way. Patrice Bergeron, Tuukka Rask, both played in Boston and had very different experiences. All right? Both organizational greats. One always got shat on by fans and media, and the other one is still a walking god. Which one of the two is going to look at the team and say, no, I'm not taking a discount to stay here. I will stay, and I want to be here, but you're putting the extra $750K in my contract if I have to deal with this crap.
Yeah.
It ain't Bergeron, I'll put it that way.
Well, Bergeron proved that is last year.
Oh, 100%. So,
and that's the difference between Bergeron and Marchand. I'm sorry, did I say that out
loud? No. I didn't hear that. So, okay. No, I do think, though, that there is still a deal to be had with Dallas. I think the player that you can get from them for a reasonable deal is Mason Marchment. Because he's also not going to be someone who you put him in your lineup for his age 29 season and you go, someone can't beat him out. Right. It's a 1-year deal, similar to the idea of what you brought in Casey Middlestat, like we talked about. He's a filler piece for the year who can keep us competitive, but not be so hindering that if Don Zlotch-Mellis plays better, he can't beat him out for a roster spot, or Matthew Poitras, or name another player in Providence who could fight for that roster spot. Right. You know what I mean? It helps Dallas. Like I'm talking, you could get him for a prospect like someone like Brett Harrison, who they think they might be able, who they could look at and say, if we can get him to click his game, he could be a valuable piece for us down the road. You might have to throw in an unsigned prospect, someone like a Beckett Hendrickson or, another forward type prospect like that. And then probably a draft pick. But it's not going to be a backbreak. You're not giving up your 7th overall pick for the guy. It's not going to cost you Florida's future first. You know what I mean? Like you're throwing in maybe a 2nd round pick, and if you throw in those 2 prospects, you're getting Marchman and a mid-round 4th or 5th round pick in as the deal.
Right.
You know what I mean? Like it's a reasonable thing that Sweeney would look at and go, we can get value for this guy. And he plays center, he plays wing, he fits on the left side where you desperately need help. I think he's a better left wing than Middlestat is. Middlestat might be a better center, but, does he fit in the long term? And Marchment plays that physical, gritty game.
Right.
So.
Is that you?
That beeping? Yeah, the air fryer's going off.
Oh. Like, where is that beeping coming from? Because my battery is out. I'm not having that beeping sound anymore.
You got it replaced?
Well, I got the battery. It hasn't been put in and put up yet, but I have the battery.
Oh, so the other one just died completely.
No, we took it out.
Oh, okay. Got annoying enough. Okay.
Yeah. So it's not like it's the smoke detector. It's the sensor for my my Mitsubishi Split.
Ah, gotcha. So that's the That's the quote unquote big offseason move I can see them pulling off. And maybe it's not Marchment, maybe it's someone else of that ilk. You know what I mean? But don't get me wrong, I would love to see them go after Martin Necas. I would love to see them go after Robo, someone like that who can really bolster that middle six. I just, I don't see them giving up on Poitras just yet. And maybe they move on from Liesel. Like, if you're Colorado, you're asking for Liesel back in a Necas deal. Are you not?
Yeah, but I'm not ready to. I think that Lysel is really gonna thrive in a Marco Sturm system.
That's what I mean. Are you ready to make that decision to give up on Liesel now?
No, I would give up on Merck before I would give up on Lysel.
But with Merkulov, you're just letting him walk at this point. You don't, you know what I mean? Like, you can trade his rights, but you're not going to get a whole lot for him.
Right? But
that's why I'm saying I don't see a massive trade. Like, the massive trade that you're going to make is going to be dealing Poitras and some picks. I mean, I've thought of it. You could deal Mason Lohrei. And one of the things that I wonder about with the defense, when you look at what McAvoy, Lindholm, and Zadorov, those are the three that are signed right now past, the next 4 years. They're all signed for the next 5 seasons, right? You're talking big defensemen who can all play a semblance of a two-way game. They can all move the puck decently. Zadorov obviously being the weakest of the three, but they also all play physically and play in all 3 zones well. So Mason Lohrei still struggles in the D zone, and Andrew Peeke still struggles in the O zone. The question is are they trying to transform their defense to being more of a 6-man unit? Like, if you look at Carolina's defensive unit this year, right? If you look at what Vegas's defensive unit has been, you look at what Florida's defensive unit has been, they don't have a single specialist like a quarterback for the power play as a specialist. You know what I mean? They don't have a Mason Lohrei. You're hoping Mason Lohrei can develop the defensive aspect of his game.
true.
And so for me, you'll get a massive tell based on how they address the hole in the right side. Because I think if they go after a guy like Dante Fabro and throw him a 5 or 6 year contract, that's the direction they're looking at. The question is Dante Fabro the kind of guy they're going for, or are they going to look to, because we know they've been interested in Fabro. They almost drafted him.
Right.
So, and we know how Sweeney is when guys he liked before come available. What do you see them doing for the right side on that defense? Do you think they go higher end?
I don't think they need to go higher end.
On the right side?
Yeah, even on the I know even on the right side, it's only Charlie and Andrew right now. But I don't think that they need to like.
See, I think you can get Fabro on like a 4 or 5 year contract in that $4.5 to $5 million range. I don't think he's going to command, $8-9 million AAV like some other defenseman could.
Right.
And he's not Noah Dobson. He's not Evan Bouchard or, an offensive guru, but he's also not terrible. So I wonder how Fabro would fit as that middle defenseman with Hampus Lindholm.
I don't know. You don't think that the Bruins can keep Jokiharju?
I think they could, but is he the guy long term?
Because he was playing well with Zadorov down the stretch.
I don't hate the idea. That's the thing, is I don't know what direction they're going to look to go.
Well,
And
that's and you don't know what Sturm, I mean,
does he
there's
want
so
the two-way guy? Does he like the type of stuff that Mason Lohrei brings?
right,
Because he was talking about how they need to push for offense in general, and Lohrei helps you push the offense.
right,
For better or for worse, the guy, and he was asked about the plus minus for him, and for better or worse, he helps push the offense.
right.
So, but you're not. Do you want to see Lindholm McAvoy as one pair, and then
No,
Zadorov and Yoki
no.
Haru? Right. So your left side is what? Lohrei with McAvoy. They didn't play terribly together.
No, they didn't. I mean, Laura always played better with Carlo, and Carlo always played better with Hampus Lindholm, but Carlo's not here anymore.
Right.
So, but I think that Laura would actually learn more from McAvoy than
Or do
he
you?
would. The other thing is too is that the big thing is though is that McAvoy and Laura both like to pinch. So, which one of them is the stay-at-home defenseman?
Right. So would you rather see Mason Lohrei paired with Peak?
No,
And the other thing is these guys don't have to, like, these six guys don't have to play every shift as, you
oh yeah,
know,
because you're gonna put McAvoy and Lindholm together, or McAvoy and Zadorov together in certain matchups, certain games, certain matchups.
and
The same way,
McAvoy played well together too.
yeah, they had a little bit of communication in the beginning, but it got better. But the thing is, though, is that it was the same thing that Claude Julien used to do with Char and Seidenberg.
Right.
They never played together except for certain situations.
Oh,
You know
yeah,
what I mean?
100%.
So you're going to do the same thing with McAvoy and Lindholm or McAvoy and Zadorov. So Lohrei could actually play up and down. He could
Right.
play on the top pair, the bottom pair. He could play up and down. I think Yoki Haru can also play up and down. I don't think he's going to be on your top pair, but I think he could be in your bottom two.
You
know
also
what I
don't
mean?
know how Yoki Haru is going to play with Lindholm.
Right.
Because
or even McAvoy.
Well, Yoki Haru and McAvoy play the same side, so they're not necessarily going to play together all that much.
No, but there are going to be times where they are going to be on the ice at the same exact time. You know what I mean? It's not going to be often, but it's the same thing with, it's one of those weird things. But he also hasn't had the opportunity, even if he's not playing with McAvoy on the ice, he hasn't had the opportunity to actually play with McAvoy at all. You know what I mean? Or Lindholm at all. Meaning they've never been on the ice together because neither one of them was ready to be back from their injuries. So you don't know what those two leaderships, just being on the bench and being on the ice, could do for Yoki Haru. You know what I mean?
So just for the sake of the depth chart, and I'm looking at the AFP Analytics has the Yoki Haru contract projected at 3 years, 3.6 AAV. How do you feel about that for the 26-year-old?
I mean, he's getting 3.1 right now. So I wouldn't have a problem with that.
Do you think he gets... See, again, as Dom said, I'm not thinking he goes for 3 years at that point. I think they're going to push for shorter term so they can try and cash in on a higher dollar amount sooner, or they're going to rather secure him with term and try to go for a slightly higher amount in that 5.25 range. It's a win for Yoki Haru if he can get 5 years, $5 million.
But see, Sweeney doesn't always do that, though. And that's the thing.
Right.
Like, you got to remember what Sweeney does, not what other people want Sweeney to do. What does Sweeney do? What is it that Sweeney does? Sweeney doesn't do that. He does not give the long term to the player that hasn't proven themselves.
Now,
He's only
here's
been here. He's only been here for not even a full season. Sweeney is not going to give him 5 years.
which I agree. I don't think that he necessarily would, but there's something that Sweeney saw in him because they could have gone and dealt for a right shot defenseman. They could have called someone up. Like they could have done something else with their right shot defenseman need at the trade deadline. They went out and they got Henry Jokiharju.
Yeah.
So there has to be some level of we like how he could fit with us.
But he's still not going to go 5 years.
I don't think so. So at 26 years old, are you taking him till his age 30? Because we also know that Don Sweeney lost out on the negotiations playing hardball with Swayman last year. And as someone who does learn from his mistakes, he knows that was a mistake.
But that was two different. Hold up. Swayman, Jokiharju? No.
Not the same, but the idea of losing out.
But no, because the reason why is because Swayman and his agent were trying to reset the market for goaltenders. Jokiharju is not doing that.
No,
so Sweeney's. So no, absolutely, you cannot compare the two. You want to compare anyone? Compare him to Jake DeBrusk. Don't compare him to Swayman.
If the agent comes in and says we want 5 years, but we're not going any lower than 4.
I do not see Sweeney giving him 5 years. I don't
either.
Because there's Sweeney would rather he's not. First of all, Sweeney's not going to get bullied. He's not going to get bullied.
That's the question. At what point does the money go to a better asset than Jokiharju? Because if you're going to do Jokiharju for 3 by 3.6, right? And you could have Fabro at 5 by 5.5. Wouldn't you rather have Fabro?
If they think that Jokiharju cannot get to that level, then yes.
But when does he reach that level? Does he reach it at the end of the contract when he's owed another contract? Or does he reach it during the contract when you can make a better decision on extending him further?
Let's see. Hold on.
So, I mean, it's the balance that every general manager and an agent are trying to find. That at a certain point, though, as a general manager, you have to sit there and, as Big Bad Bruin Joe says, put the money on a better asset. You're not going to overpay for Jokiharju if it's going to just cost you a little bit more to get a better asset. And I would say Dante Fabro is better than Jokiharju. William says, what about Grizzly coming back on a cheap deal? Problem with that, William, is he plays on the left side. Your left side is all set.
The only way Grizzly comes back on a cheap deal is if they trade Lowry for help up front, not on the back end. If they trade Lowry for help up front, then you get Grizzly to come back and play on that left side with McAvoy.
I would be okay with that.
That's the only way you bring back Grizzly, because if not, your left side is set if Lowry, Zadorov, and Lindholm are here.
Now,
although you still need that extra defenseman to rotate in for injuries and stuff like that. So would Grizzly come back on a cheap deal to not play every single night?
If Grizzly took that kind of deal, I think you could easily bring in another left shot defenseman, just as an example, a Michael Callahan, who can rotate into the lineup and fill in once in a while. Because Grizzly has shown he can do the 82 game regular season. His game became a problem in the playoffs as a smaller defenseman.
He also got injured a lot in the playoffs.
That's what I mean. He got injured a lot. So having a Michael Callahan as that number 7 defenseman who mostly rotates in on the left side, you'd be okay with.
Right.
So, again, not impossible.
Right.
And we
But
know he
again,
loved it here. I just don't
well,
see the
he's
likelihood
from
being.
here.
I
His
know.
father's still part of the Bull gang.
Just my point being is he enjoyed it here, okay?
Well, he's another one where he's not going to go where the paycheck is. He's going to go, you know what I mean?
Right. So,
But he's also not going to get a paycheck. So there's a difference there too.
right.
No one's going to overpay for Matt Grizzlick.
No, especially after what he's been doing in Pittsburgh.
Well,
so
you can't blame him for what's happening in Pittsburgh.
Oh no, I don't. I definitely don't. I guess the other thing too, though, is another team gonna call? I mean, that's why I'm saying I don't know what the deal is. Another option: pick up the phone and call Barry Trotz, right, and see if you can get a guy like Jonathan Marchessault for Casey Middlestead, because you don't need Middlestead down the middle if you think Matthew Poitras can take over as your 2C now. Mm-hmm. And Marchessault has not fit for them down there. He's a movable piece, and they need centers. Mm-hmm. Hell, I would do it for Zacha too. I just think Zacha fits better in this team than Middlestead does.
Oh, I 100% agree. Especially because Zacha can go to the wing, has proven that he can go to the wing. Or play down the middle. He has chemistry with David Pastrnak, but he can also play down the lineup. You know what I mean? So he
exactly
could be, if God forbid, I don't want to, because I want Lindholm to be healthy. But if Lindholm's not healthy, you move Zacha back up into that top line with Pastrnak and Geeky. He's comfortable there. He's already built that chemistry. So I think that Zacha offers you more just for that.
And Marchessault has played the left side too. So you could also, even though he's a right shot, you could put him on the left side of Matthew Poitras, and your second line could be Marchessault, Poitras, and Lysell. Well, and that's a hell of a guy to be on the line with the two young kids.
Right. Well, because the other thing is Morgan Geeky, Elias Lindholm, and David Pastrnak are all right-handed shots.
Yeah, that's right. I
so
didn't
it doesn't.
That.
So when people say, you know, right wing, left wing, this, that, and the other thing, it depends on the player and it depends on who they're playing with, because Geeky, Lindholm, and Pastrnak made it work down the stretch. And that was something that Pastrnak said, you know, with them all being right-handed shots, they were able to build that chemistry too, because they knew where the stick was going to be.
Mm-hmm. And you know what? We now have an all-time goal scoring leader who's a left wing who shoots right-handed.
Right.
So it's not the end all be all, but with I just don't know if you want your entire top six to be right shot. That is one thing.
Right. Yeah. No, I mean, you don't want the entire top six to be right, but all I'm pointing out is that sometimes playing on the left, if you're a right shot, it doesn't matter.
Right. And that's where you could have someone like like Zacha, and even Beecher, you know, depending on what the situation is. If you're starting in your D zone, for instance, and you need a left shot center to take the draw, you can have Beecher or Zacha out there on the left side of Poitras. You know what I mean? Like, you can mix and match some of these guys because of their ability. Like, Beecher has the speed to keep up with Lysell and Poitras. Obviously, the offense isn't there, but the speed, he can cause havoc for those guys if he got stuck out there for, 45 seconds.
Right.
You know, you're not throwing that line over the boards together, but if something were to happen where they got stuck on the ice, you're not sitting there going, oh my God, what do I do? Like, okay, maybe fans are sitting there going, what the hell is he doing? But that's going to be the fan reaction. That's the other advantage of having guys like Beecher and Hustadinov and Zacha and all these guys, is they can play multiple positions. They are very good at least two positions. The problem is right now we have them all on the left side or down the middle.
Right.
So, and I don't know where else to go with this.
That's the problem. You and I have had this conversation so many times. We could put on our Magic 8 Ball hats and we could throw a roster together, and then all of a sudden Sweeney's going to be at the draft and he's going to trade away the rights to Beecher, this one, that one, bring in this player, do this, do that, and you're all like, what? I mean, your head's spinning. You know what I mean? And then on July 1, on July 1, he's trading away this person, and this person, and signing a no-name player for a 2-year contract at $875,000 who turns into Morgan Geeky. You know what I mean? So, I mean, that's the whole thing. It's so hard to figure out what Sweeney's going to do because, again, I disagree with Kevin, and I am on record saying this. I don't care. I honestly think that if Jeremy Swayman, and you and I have had this conversation on every single podcast, Jeremy Swayman didn't miss training camp last year. He plays a lot better. Hampus Lindholm, Charlie McAvoy, Elias Lindholm aren't injured. This team was a playoff team last year.
100%.
They were a wild card team, and they may not made it out of the first round, but they were a playoff team.
And if you look at it in terms of them being a playoff team, you're trying to build on that. Go whatever yourself, Kevin. She's right. I don't know what you're until you get on this show with a microphone and a camera again, Kevin. Don't care.
Kevin, I love you, and you know that.
Yeah, he started the show with me, so he knows that I'm with
and Kevin and I have done shows together before.
Oh yeah, no, Kevin's awesome. He knows that.
Kevin is a rock star. I miss Kevin. He's not around as much anymore.
No, like I said, we got to get him on a mic and a camera again. Kevin, let me ask you this. All right. I know, Kevin. So are we. We love you. Would you put the 7th overall pick on the table?
Sweeney alluded to it today.
I know. I'm asking if you would do it.
If you're going to trade up, yes.
What if you're trading for a roster player?
Well, it depends on the roster player. If you're going to get someone that's going to help the team right now, 100% I would do that every day and twice on Sunday. And I know a lot of Bruins fans are going to complain that John Sweeney can't draft. Well, if he's going to get a roster player that's going to help the team now, I don't give a crap. I'd rather help the team now than a roster player that may not be ready, than a draft player that may not be ready for another 2 to 3 years.
Now, I'm not saying that the 7th overall pick would be in play for this player. All right. I'm just looking at other teams that need some cap relief.
Not Pittsburgh, because they have the best cap relief out of everyone. I mean, not cap relief. They have the most draft picks.
Yeah, they have the most draft picks. I'm talking other teams that are going to try to aggressively, and I'm just going to pull this down for a little bit because we're not making any adjustments to it. I don't know how I feel about it, but I can talk myself into Chris Kreider.
Yeah.
I can talk myself into it, and here's why. All right. What kind of goals does Chris Kreider score?
Dirty goals, garbage goals.
And who can find guys in front of the net on this team?
Pretty much everyone.
Matthew Poitras, Fraser Minton.
That's why I say pretty much everyone. Pavel Zacha can.
Zacha.
They all can. Even Pastrnak can find people in front of the net. It's
right.
The Bruins have made a lot of money scoring goals in front of the net. Garbage goals.
Now, Chris Kreider's 34. He's got 2 years left on his deal, and he's $6.5 million. That's a huge relief for the Rangers. You can absorb that contract. It's only for 2 years. Here's my question. Who's not beating him out on this roster or in your farm system?
I just don't know if Chris Kreider is the caliber of culture.
I don't know either. But if you can get him, because here's the thing with Kreider too, right? That locker room in New York has been a fucking disaster. So you don't think if he joined, but it wasn't when he first got there.
But I don't know, because we don't even know. Let's be honest. The Bruins culture, every player that created that culture is gone.
Yes.
Right? So we can establish that. They're all gone. Yes, Marco Sturm is back, but he's also not a player. He's a coach.
But is
so
Sturm and Kreider, is there enough of a similarity there as a player?
But hold on. Now you have McAvoy and Pasternak are the only other two left that really learned from Chara and Bergeron and Marchand. The whole team's gone.
I know.
That had that culture.
I didn't say I'm not concerned about it. I just said I could be talked into it.
But I'm not sure that he helps this team right now. If he can't fit in the locker room with the core,
I would take the same approach that Carolina took with Mikko Rantanen. I'm not afraid to move on from him for less.
But the problem is then once you take him, who do you give him to?
Who's going to turn now? That's the thing, is at least right now, if you possibly look to bring him in, he's got a 15-team no trade clause right now.
That's what I was just looking up.
If you possibly look to bring him in, right? You bring him in, I'm talking dirt freaking cheap, right? Like second round pick at most, not multiple assets, because this is a cap dump for New York, right? And you can sit there and you can look at him and go, 31 other teams didn't want you. If you don't fit in here, if you don't buy into what we're doing, we'll buy you out and have no problem. We'll waive you, and we have no problem letting you sit down in Providence and buy you out in the offseason.
I don't know if it's worth the risk.
There's some level of risk, of course.
Well, right, but
you're talking about a guy who can score those goals that you need.
But you're talking about a general manager who is basically head on the chopping block.
Yeah.
Right?
Go big or
so
go
you
home.
Make that move and it doesn't work. How are you instilling confidence in ownership, in your coach, in the other players in the room? I don't think that he's the right player you take that risk on.
I don't know if he is or not. I'm just trying to throw some names out there of guys who could be available.
I just don't think that he
would have to get a first round pick back just to take Kreider. Well, that's the thing, is if you take him on and you swing a deal where you're not only getting Kreider, as an example, let's say you are getting a first round pick attached to it, right? You take a risk on the player, sure, but you also gain a potential top asset.
You think New York's going to give him up for a second round pick? I don't think so.
That's the thing. I don't know. I mean, Drury just got extended. Who knows what the hell they're going to do?
Yeah, but they also just brought in Mike Sullivan.
Right. I don't think he goes anywhere. I genuinely don't think they move him. Another name that I thought of, and again, I don't know if Montreal moves him, but how does Patrick Laine fit in for them long term?
See, I would take Laine over Kreider.
I would too. I just don't know if Laine is the right move either. And I just don't know how they see him fitting in long term. I would love to work out a deal with St. Louis if you can get a guy like Jordan Kyrou. I know his name was thrown out there, or Robert Thomas, or one of those guys. I just don't know why they would be moving off of them. I know they need cap help. They've only got $5 million to work with. I just don't know if the top 4 or 5 guys there are the guys they want to move on from.
Right.
I mean, even Neighbors. I mean, I'm just looking at their top guys. You know, they're going to lose. They're going to get the relief of Torrey Krug retiring. Is he retiring, or is he just going to be on LTIR for 2 more years? I know he's not playing anymore.
I think they're going to give him the same treatment that the Bruins gave Marc Savard.
Probably. That would make sense.
Yeah. I honestly, I think St. Louis doesn't, although the Bruins were able to move on from Marc Savard's contract, I think it was his last year or his last 2 years, they traded his contract to Florida, I think it was.
It was, yeah. Because he went with I think he went with no, it wasn't crap, why can't I remember? Why can't I remember? It's bothering me. He went with Riley Smith. It was Riley Smith. Okay. Yeah. That was the Jimmy Hayes deal.
Right. And then he actually, New Jersey picked up his last contract.
Wow. I totally forgot about that.
Yeah.
But yeah, that's what's going to happen with Krug.
Right. But Savard also had a lot more years on his contract. I think Krug only has this year and next year.
Yeah, he's got 2 more years at the 6.5. Honestly, he'll end up in Vegas.
Yeah.
They know how to do the cap.
Yeah.
They'll trade Mark Stone, and then they'll bring in Krug so they can put him on LTIR, and then they'll bring in Mitch Marner. Oh man. They're not going to get rid of Broberg, who they just brought in. And then Colton Parayko doesn't make sense to move on from. Justin Falk, maybe, but that's not necessarily someone I think the Bruins would be in on. You know, it just doesn't seem to fit.
Right.
And then, I mean, I'd see what Vegas has to offer. I just don't know. You know what I mean? Like, would they give up on Ivan Barbashev? Could he be the piece they move on from? Because like Mark Stone is the guy they gave the C to. I know we talked about Fleury and Carlson and Marchessault and some of the other guys, but like they gave the C to Stone.
Right.
Are they going to do Stone dirty the same way?
Kevin, I'm having a hard time with it too. You're not the only one.
I said I could be talked into it. I didn't say I love the idea. All right. Because, again, when it comes to Kreider, what if it works? I know, what if it doesn't? But what if it does? See? And we have the guys who can find him in front of the net. So
true.
That's why I'm a little, at least strategically on the ice, I'm a little less worried about it. Again, all of your concerns about the locker room is what gives me pause. And without being able to talk to him and have conversations with him, I have to leave the door open. You know what I mean? So who else? I know the Islanders are probably going to look to shake things up. They have a new general manager. Is there anyone there? I mean, I don't even know. I know a couple of years ago, Kevin, you were around for the conversations with Dom. Let's see. Kevin says, Kreider's a movie make for your third line if you're a contender, pass for the Bruins. Well, Kevin, like I said, in the Bruins organization, if you did bring him in, he could play second or third line. And I agree, he's better off as a contender. But as Gayle mentioned, this team is a playoff team if they are healthy last year. I know you don't like to admit it. I know it pains Kevin to even say Bruins and playoffs in the same sentence right now.
Right.
But if they were healthy, this is a playoff team. if they are healthy and Kreider joins the mix, they are a better playoff team on the ice. Are they not?
They are.
So, I mean, do you have anybody? Don't die on this hill.
What?
Which hill? The playoff, if healthy, or that Kreider would help on the ice? There's a difference between sneaking into a wild card spot and being a contender. Yes, and this team, when they were healthy, when they were fully healthy, right, in the first few games of the season, they were a playoff team. They were a top team in the East. And then injuries started to occur. And that's when things went to shit.
If the Bruins were fully healthy, they're a better team than Montreal.
Yes. They're a better team than Ottawa if they're fully healthy.
Mm-hmm.
Let me
If
see.
if Swayman plays the way Swayman played 2 years ago, they're a better team if they're fully healthy than Ottawa, Montreal, maybe even Tampa.
I was going to say I would put Tampa in that mix too because they have better depth than Tampa when they're healthy.
Right.
So, no, the Kreider Hill of bringing him in for the reasons you're trying to talk yourself into. Kevin, it's all about what's the risk. What are you giving up to get him? I'm not giving up the 7th overall pick to bring him in. Hell no. All right? No, absolutely not. But if it's going to cost me, Brett Harrison in a second, okay. Like, I'm fine with that. And then they sold off a bunch of pieces, so we can't use 3 games at the start of the season as a metric. They didn't sell off pieces after 3 games, though. You wanted them to. Maybe in your head they did, but they didn't. They hung around the playoffs, Kevin. So, yeah, no, they're a better team than I would put Tampa in that mix. I really would. So, but who are you picking up the phone to call? I think Laine only has 1 year left on his current contract. Yes, that's why he intrigues me, because you can walk away from him if it doesn't work, and it's only the 1 year.
Yeah, but it's also 8.7.
But you can handle it.
Yeah. But what if there's something better out there for more than 1 year?
I'm open to that. What's the better? That's what because I'm looking at the standings from last year. Like Detroit, for instance, right? They're probably going to make some changes, I would think. Let's see. You told me they were a playoff team when healthy, playing good for the first few games in October last season. So then I said what I said. I don't know, Kevin. We'll have to figure that one out. When healthy, they were a playoff team. They did not fall out of the playoffs until after January 1st, completely. All right? And they took a nosedive at the trade deadline. They slowly fell out of the playoff race in December and January and February. But going into it, they were the first team in the East for like a month and a half, despite how bad they were playing. Because Florida got off to a crappy start, Tampa got off to a mediocre start, and Toronto sucked in the first part of the season.
Yeah, but the first 19 games of the season, the Bruins sucked. That's why they fired Montgomery.
But they were still in the playoff race.
Once they fired Montgomery and Sacco took over, they started playing better, and they got finally into a spot where they were playing much better. But then coming out of the Christmas break, things were completely different.
They had
and when they fired Montgomery from November 19th until after the Christmas break, they played much better.
Yeah,
No, go ahead. But then once they came out of that Christmas break, they started that roller coaster again. And then Four Nations happened. And even before McAvoy got hurt, going into that Four Nations break was when they took that nosedive. And then coming out of the Four Nations break
They never
without
came out of it.
McAvoy, they never came back out of it.
Right. So the first, what was it, 19, 20 games with Montgomery?
19.
19. They were an average, like slightly less than 500 team. If I remember correctly, they were a little below 500. They weren't playing well, but they still had some wins in there, and they were still hanging around. Let me see if I can pull up.
The Bruins were they were 8-9-3 in the first 20 games.
8-9-3, so roughly just below 900 or just below 500.
But I mean, if you're looking at the 3 overtime losses, not just the 9 losses in regulation, you look
Bettman
at the
500.
Right. 8-9-3 is not that is a horrible way to start the season. 8-9-3.
Absolutely. But where you stand in relation to the playoffs is off of Bettman 500. So you were still in the playoff race at that point. And if I remember correctly, I'm trying to see. Unfortunately, I don't think there's a way to go back and see what the standings were from, week to week or whatever. But once Montgomery got fired, that was the 19th game of the season. That was the St. Louis game. That was when you went, what was it? 1, 2, 3, 4. You had the 4 wins in a row, couple back-to-backs in there. You played much better. Then in December 31st, you hit a 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 game losing skid. That 6 game losing skid was what started your downfall at the end of December. You came out of it, that break, and it didn't help, because that was the 2nd, 4th, 5th, 7th, and 9th of January. You lost all of those games. And then the next massive losing streak, you held. They were a 500 team ish, other than those 2 massive 6 game losing streaks. Or sorry, 5 and 6 game losing streaks. And then you just completely gave up on the season at the deadline. In the future, let's see, it doesn't matter what happened. Yeah, well, that's the point, though, Kevin. And a lot of the pieces that they had last year, a lot of them are coming back. Your top line is coming back. Most of your fourth line is coming back. Your defense is coming back. And so is your top pairing. So the core of what made the team last year is returning. Is there anyone that you specifically would target?
No,
in a trade?
Right now, not in the trade. No, I honestly haven't dove that deep into it.
I know there's been a lot going on.
Yeah, my life was upended. So I haven't dove that deep into it. It was stuff that I was gonna start looking at and just, yeah.
I will also say I wouldn't be surprised if you see someone come in and you go, who the hell is he? And he's from the Ontario Reign.
A player?
Yeah. Because Sturm just spent the last 3 years with those guys.
Right.
So I wouldn't be surprised. I know they're not going to bring back Jatstanika, but I'm sure there's at least 1 or 2 players that he can look at and say to Sweeney, like, go get him. He fits this spot. So, maybe that next Morgan Geeky kind of player. So
I mean, but the other thing is too, is that the Bruins have been known to trade prospects too.
Oh yeah.
You know what I mean? It could be that they say, maybe they do trade, a couple of prospects from Providence for a couple of prospects from Ontario.
Yep. William says, what about Zibanejad? I don't know if New York moves on from him. I don't think teams are going to be as willing to help New York as New York needs the help. And Zibanejad is signed through 2030 at 8.5.
Yeah.
I don't think they're going to give him up. And if they're willing to, I don't know if they're going to be able to give him up for what a team is willing to pay for him. Uh-oh.
Are you okay over there? What the hell's going on?
I just had 4 cables get unplugged.
Oh.
Including the power cable. So there we go. Let's see. Kevin says Bruins gonna pick Brady Martin or Jake O'Brien and call it a day. I wonder if they try and move up from Misa though. So that's a good question or a good point on the draft. And then he says I wouldn't sleep on taking Eklund though. That kid is gonna shred in the NHL. I think he ends up being a better NHLer than both Martin or O'Brien.
I think I was all in on Eklund when the last time we talked about this.
I love possibly picking Eklund at 7. I think he's a great pick at that spot, and I think he will tremendously help the team.
Yeah.
I think he not necessarily right away, but I think it's tough because Boston is in a position where they have to wait for other players to get taken.
Right.
So that's where the question is.
Unless they target someone and they trade to move up and, so. But if they do that, see that's the only thing. If the Bruins do that, if they say they have a specific player in mind and they target that player and they trade the seventh pick to move up to get that player, and then someone else develops quicker or better or whatever, then it's Sweeney doesn't know what he's doing.
Oh yeah, 100%. That is 100% what's going to happen. It's funny how we can write the script now. Right. They trade up and they draft Michael Misa, and then all of a sudden Porter Martone makes the NHL roster out of camp for Nashville just because they need the winger because of an injury or something. And next thing you know, it's they should have gone Martone. He doesn't know what the hell he's doing.
Right.
So Kevin says, I think McQueen ends up as the steal of the draft, though, for whoever takes him. People are nervous about the back stuff, and he's been cleared as it being a non-issue. See, Kevin, based on what I'm hearing from the combine and stuff, he's rising back up the boards. So I don't know if he is a center, so he is going to be a premium over a wing. So, there's also the possibility that a team jumps to the Islanders and tries to go and, if you're Chicago or Utah, for instance, right? And they're looking at possibly moving out of the 4 pick, the 3 or 4 pick, right? You could move up with New York, get some assets, and then move the number 1 pick to someone else and get more than what you would have gotten for your number 3 pick.
Right.
And if you're a team like Chicago or, I don't know, Utah's a great example. They have prospects and picks up the wazoo. So I could very easily see them doing that just because it wouldn't hurt them. I'll put it that way. And then, if you're New York, are you going Schaefer, Misa? Are you going anyone else? As weird as it is, I could see them going off the board and getting a winger in Martone or someone like that, or taking the you know what I mean? Like, Kevin, I totally agree. I think McQueen is top 15, 100%. Williams got the question. What would you have to give up to move up?
It depends on where you're going. You know what I mean? Like, are you going the first overall pick with New York? Are you going to, because if you go into the first overall pick, you're giving up a draft pick plus a couple of prospects at least.
You're giving up
Or Mason Lohrei.
That's just it. You're giving up Lohrei, your 7th, and probably one more first.
Yeah.
If
I'm not sure this draft class is worth that.
Right. And if you're moving up to get Schaefer, like, you might as well just keep Mason Lohrei. Right. Like, I'm not saying that Schaefer is going to be less of a player than Lohrei. All I'm saying is in this draft class, you might as well hang on to Lohrei because you're not trading up to get Cale Makar.
Right.
Let's see. You'd have to get to number 2 at least to get Misa. Maybe. What if the Islanders take Misa 1? Could happen. What if the Islanders trade to someone else so they can take Misa number 1?
Right.
You know, if you're Nashville, you need some centers and you need some ready centers ASAP. Like, and McQueen, I know you said top 15, Kevin. Roger McQueen could have been, like, what I hear from people who have watched him enough, he could have been a top 5 pick. Top 5, if not for the back issues. All right? Similar to Kalen Lidstrom from last year, who went 4th overall to the Jackets. And he's now making the jump to NCAA. Kevin Schaefer is not Makar. He's not. He will be a top pairing defenseman, but he will not be Cale Makar. I don't think so.
The two of you are having an argument. I'm just sitting here.
Oh no, I just responded to what he wrote out there. So we got to figure out what we're going to do for the draft.
When is the draft?
June 29th, I think. I have to look it up to get the exact date, but we'll have to figure that out. I'm just now realizing the time, so we can wrap this up unless you have any other major thoughts for this show.
I do not. June 28th. June 27th is the first round.
Okay, so 27th, 28th. I didn't know what the count, because I think it's a Friday and Saturday.
Yes, Friday, right? Saturday.
Okay, yeah. I didn't know what day of the week the 29th was, but I knew it was somewhere around there.
Yeah, the 27th is Friday.
Let's see. Kevin says he is Makar type D. He's being dubbed as a franchise cornerstone. Well, we'll just have to see, Kevin. We'll have to see. Scoreboard. That's all we can say about that one. What does Dom say about McQueen? Well, we'll have to ask Dom next time he's in the chat. So I know he's not low on him, that's for sure. But again, injuries are the concern. His back is the concern. So it's all going to come down to medicals and how comfortable teams are dealing with the back problem. So with that, though, I want to thank everyone for tuning in for the last 2.5 hours. It's been awesome. It's always fun. You and I
for all the questions and comments and banter.
Of course. And this is why we like Kevin so much, because he deals with it as much as he gives it. So we are going to work on coming up with a regular schedule to be on here.
Yeah, once my schedule solidifies, we'll definitely, which is next week. Weeks. It should be, I should be solidified to where we can pick an actual night where we, so it's a weekly thing so that we know exactly where. We stand.
we'll regain some consistency, and we're gonna work on some detail stuff as we go into the draft. We'll figure some stuff out. We'll figure some stuff out for as camps get ready to get underway, and we'll figure all that out, and we'll let you guys all know where it's all going, and hopefully we get Dom back soon. But in the meantime, we're gonna keep cooking, and he's ready to join the party. He will, hopefully. And I know once he and I connect a lot more, he will have a lot more on those prospects. But I'm going to work on more of the prospect stuff myself as well. And until next time, thanks for tuning